Hello.
Did you start it? Oh, yeah, you did.
How's everybody doing?
Oh, that's perfect.
Yes. Let me get my little pillow here. Hope everybody's great tonight.
You're so
Well,
cute.
so it's us once again. We're the Williams. This is my lovely wife, Ramona.
Hi.
My name is Wilbert, aka Will.
AKA
We
Big
want to.
Daddy.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I like that though. Yeah. Back to what we was going to talk about. All right. So we're back again with another edition of Love Unscripted. So we want to just come here tonight just to say this is our perspective. We're not perfect. This is just how things work in our marriage, in our covenant. Mm-hmm. And so tonight's topic is in an argument, the win is not worth it.
The win is not.
The win is not worth it. Mm-hmm. So you ask, what do you mean the win is not worth it? Well, some of you may have caught on really quick to what that means. Some of you may need a little explaining. So here it goes. Because some of you just want to win all the time, no matter what. But it's really not worth it. So meaning that sometimes it's better to just kind of move aside the differences to find a common ground to where you guys can, yeah, that's a cell phone in the background if y'all heard that, where you guys can come to an agreement to move forward. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna pass this on to my wonderful wife and let her give more I guess intricate details to our thought process.
Yeah, so like in the title, we mentioned we're specifically talking about in an argument. So whenever there is sometimes a disagreement, and as my husband was saying, is that sometimes we can be so competitive, and we might not look at it as competitive, but it could be one of the factors. Like you're so competitive that you always want to win, or you always want to be right. Or just because you are, let's say you have a disagreement, you may be so bent on having your perspective said, and making sure that your spouse hears what it is that was the issue, the problem. Why are you so infuriated? Why things seem to be going left when they should be going right. And instead of being in a disagreement or an argument, let's just call it what it is, because sometimes you just have flat out arguments, right? So if you are having an argument and your thought process in that, when you're in that space, isn't necessarily to hear your spouse out and come to a common ground and see where,
I like that.
Yeah, and see where there can be a sharing of perspective and understanding the other person's perspective, so that way you can come to a resolution. Sometimes it's almost like we're trying to race to a win. I have to be right in this situation. In order for this argument to be over, the other person has to know that I'm right, period. And I think a lot of times that causes a delay in the resolution, because we don't open our ears up enough, or even sometimes our heart up enough to know, to be able to hear where our spouse is coming from. So that way, like I said, we can find that common ground. And I think when you think about it, what is more worth it? Being able to win and be right, or being able to win as a couple at being win as a couple to overcome that particular moment, that particular instance.
Okay. I like what my wife said. There's instances where a couple, either the husband or the wife, either spouse will race to get to be victorious in the disagreement.
Mm-hmm.
And what that ends up doing, that ends up tracing back, or here's something I said in my, because you say I'm old school, but I ain't gonna lie. You know, one of the things that I think about is sometimes you push repeat instead of play. You've heard it before, but then you want to hear it again, but it comes from you. And what you end up doing is
explain that a little bit more.
Okay, so what you end up doing is when you push repeat or replay, you push replay instead of play, then what happens is you end up saying something that's previously over and done, previously in the past, previously you've heard before, but instead you push replay to bring it up again to try to win in this argument.
Your win tactic.
Yeah,
your strategy for making sure that
exactly.
Hey, when I leave this, if there's a white flag, it is not me waving it.
I mean, it's something else. What you should, instead of pushing play, saying let's have this conversation about this conversation, what you do is push replay and bring up all these rehash. Yeah. Information that is gone. And what you're doing is you're simply trying to get a win. You're trying to prove your point. You're trying so hard to make your point and not feel like you are the loser in this. To me, that's just two stubborn people bumping heads. Oh. What's going to end up happening is you're just going to end up with bruises. Somewhere. Ego, attitude, yes. Your joy gonna be bruised, your smile gonna be bruised, the gleam, your peace will be bruised. Mm-hmm. Is it worth it? Mm. Is it really worth it?
Yeah, babe. I love the way you said that. Two stubborn people bumping heads. Yeah. And at what point
Two bullheaded.
Uh-huh. And at what point do you say, okay, you know what? And you know what? Okay. I always harp on communication. We always harp on communicating and talking through it. And I think, yet again, this is something else that you and your spouse can talk about. Think about it, and have those conversations when you're not in an argument. Something has come up, because that is reality. As two human beings coexisting in a space, there will be disagreements. It don't Absolutely. Have to be shouting matches, but there will be arguments. Correct. So let's say you're not in the throes of a debate or an argument or a disagreement, and but you recognize that the way you argue, it doesn't come out as a fair fight. When I say fair fight, that at the end of it you can kiss and make up and you move on and you don't miss a beat. And so it's been recognized by either you or your spouse or both of you that, hey, you know what? Whenever we have a disagreement, it extends. It goes on much longer than it needs to because somebody is always trying to be the winner in that case. And I think it happens a lot in a lot of relationships, right? And so that is a perfect opportunity to go into the dialogue room and bring that up. Okay, so how can we rectify the other person trying to feel like they have to win? Because at the end of the day, you're not two, you're one, right? Oh. So I just threw that out there. Oh. And so you're not looking for a win individually. You're looking for the win as a couple that is going to be a win for what?
Go ahead.
That will be a win for your relationship.
You're no longer two, but you are one.
Yeah, and so you're looking for that couple win. Who cares if you win individually? Because what point does it serve? Now, yes, is it fair for you to, because I think it's important in a relationship to have opinions, have thoughts, have perspective, be respected by your spouse for the things that you're saying. and them to show a certain level of, yes, I hear you, I
Mm,
see you,
yeah.
and I can meet you where you are. That is so important. Um, Go ahead.
I think it's important, to meet each other where you are,
Mm-hmm.
to be heard, to speak to be heard. Don't speak to be hurtful. It's a big difference. And when you're speak to being heard, you're speaking in such a way to where you're not keeping things in. You're speaking because these are actual things that are concerning you. And as a listener, either side, I think it's important to say to yourself, I'm listening and I want to hear. Not just listening, but I'm hearing. And when you hear, you understand. Because a lot of people just listen but never hear. But when you hear, you understand. And it's important to be able to vocalize that between each other in a fashion where it's beneficial and not, how can I say, not
Like you just said, like,
detrimental.
yeah, and
It's
hurtful.
or hurtful. It's something that allows you to come to an understanding that brings you both to a better understanding of what concerns each other. To me, that makes that's a win for the both. Because if you don't, what ends up happening is you lose anyhow. If the other wins and the other loses, you lose. You both lose. It doesn't. There's no winning there unless you both win.
And is it a win if you walk out of that argument and the other person is hurt? The other person feels
It's a loss.
disrespected because you got your point across.
Hmm.
You were right and you got
Hmm.
your point across, and the
Hmm.
other person is hurt. They
Come
feel
on.
disrespected.
Come on.
They feel like, did they just talk to me that way, or
Right.
did that conversation happen that
Mm-hmm.
way? Did you really win?
Right.
And so it's not worth it.
It's not
Right?
worth it.
And sometimes you do have to hold your tongue.
Good point. Come on.
Sometimes you say things because sometimes you want to go in, and if this is going to help to fortify me being right, I'm going to say it. You better not, because it's not worth it. Hold your tongue. Is that it? Are you spewing out love? Are you spewing out hurt towards your spouse?
Exactly. Like I said earlier, you speak you, to be heard and not to be hurtful. That's to me that's such a key component in your delivery. What ends up happening is that it's fueled by anger, it's fueled by spite, it's fueled by disappointment, it's fueled by frustration, and those words with the kind of catalyst I just talked about will end up you know being, I don't know, like dynamite.
Yeah, yeah,
It just blows up.
yeah.
It just becomes something out of control, and you don't want to allow those little things to trick you into going beyond what could be a very peaceful disagreement.
Mm. While you were saying that, I was thinking fighting fair. It should be a fair fight.
Mm.
And I also believe the Holy Spirit was telling me to clarify when I say fighting in argument, there is no room for the cursing out,
Come on.
um, just disrespectful language, calling your spouse out of their name, saying things that are blatantly hurtful. There is no room for that. And so when I say, or when we say arguing, or when we say disagreeing, and we are saying, and I think this might be something that has to be learned and practiced in some relationships, because, like we've mentioned before, how you grew up or how you've done previous relationships sometimes can have an impact on how you communicate in your current relationship. And but arguing for lack of a better word, could just be like, hey, we're having a discussion, we're having a disagreement, and we're talking in the same tone as we're talking now.
Absolutely.
Now, does it sometimes go above that? It absolutely can. Can you rectify that as well? Because you're human. There could be such a so many things that go into an argument, feeling like it can escalate. But I would say this: making sure when you are having those moments to think about your spouse, your intention for saying and talking to them in the level and the tone that you are talking to them, that you're communicating with them, and being intentional. And I think a lot of that also can be, and I hope I'm saying everything that the way I need to be saying it. And I think a lot of that sometimes can be having a conversation in the dialogue room and taking out emotion and feeling, because I think that's what makes
Absolutely.
it escalate a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we get so emotionally
Mm-hmm.
attached to our opinion and our need to be right. And I can give you an example of us this weekend. We were having some dialogue room conversation, and I love, and this is the thing about it too. We're not perfect, and I'm not saying us, just human beings. We're not perfect, right? And so when we learned this practice of the dialogue room, and when we first started premarital counseling, we're like, man, this is good. And as we continued to be intentional about using it,
Mm-hmm.
we just became better and better and better. So had a conversation this weekend in the dialogue room, and we were about to go get our nails done. So we ended it so we can get our nails done. We came back out. We picked it back up. uh, we got something to eat. And then my husband was like, okay, we finished with the dialogue room conversation? Yep. All right. And we didn't miss a beat. We kept on going.
Absolutely.
And so that for us is an argument.
Mm.
So when we say argument, we're not talking about screaming at the top of your lungs.
Nope.
That level of disrespect is just not acceptable.
Correct.
But it really is, how can you argue out? And guess what? Neither one of us had to end that conversation with the need to feel like we were right. But we got our perspectives heard in those cases.
Exactly.
And then we moved on.
Exactly.
And we continued to respect each other and
Mhm.
walk and hold hands.
Mhm.
And, me being silly when we're at the store and,
Mhm.
and he's paying and I'm being silly behind him at the counter. The things that we would normally do. So we
Exactly.
weren't interrupted in our relationship because of a disagreement or a conversation that we had.
Come on now. Whenever those moments happen, a lot of times, if you don't practice, if you don't have this type of, I say it's our own little weapon of warfare against those type of situations.
Yeah.
And trust me, it's powerful.
Yeah.
And I definitely, recommend it to everybody that's listening, everybody that watches this video. Practice it. You'll see it. All of a sudden, you come around, you're like, man, how come I didn't start this sooner? And when you give time to it and you do it over and over again, because trust and believe, there's going to be disagreements, and then you practice the dialogue room, you'll find that it gets easier and easier. Easier? Did I say it right? Easier and easier to do. And your discussions, well, your debates or your arguments now become discussions.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying the same things in a whole different tone, with a whole different result. You know what insanity is, right? Keep doing the same things, expecting a different result. That's insanity. So we implore you, try it. Try the dialogue room.
Yeah.
The win isn't worth it. Just isn't worth it.
It's not worth
Listen, you're no longer two, but you're one. You're one.
Yes, and so we just speak into your life the ability to be able to hear out your spouse, Be able to communicate in a way that's respectful and not hurtful, that you can fight fair, and that you are not, even in a disagreement, that there is an evident and present love, and that hurt will not manifest itself during those moments of discussion. No hurt, no disrespect, no regret of words that came out that should not have been said. And so we just believe that your life, your marriage will grow in the space, even in a disagreement, that you may learn more about each other. You may learn how to communicate. You will learn how to a different level of love, even in your disagreement. Because I think there's something to be learned in every aspect of our marriage. No matter what we go through, there's something to learn.
Absolutely.
And so we speak that into your life.
Absolutely. And so we speak hope to you all. Blessings to you all.
Many blessings.
I mean, a tremendous amount of blessings.
Overflow blessings.
Absolutely.
You can't even get out the driveway because before your tires hit the curb, it's just blessings all over.
Overtaken by blessings. You're no longer two, but you're one.
That's a pretty one.
Hey. Once again, peace.
Yes.
Oh, let's do it this way.
Peace. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas, everybody.